All right, let's have a look at some practical examples. So we're going to have a look at the flower explosion, the MoGraph stuff, and the next video is going to be about the texture mapping. So let's have a look at the flower example. So we just have some simple flowers here that are growing, which if we just look through the camera, let me go to the correct position. We can go into Redshift and then have that, I think this one. All right, so we can see we have it growing here. So I'm actually instancing both a BGO here for preview and then a Redshift proxy for actual rendering. Because this just works better. If you try to render the BGO like this, you can get sometimes you can get some weird issues with Redshift, so it's generally a little bit better to, like, you can make it work, but it's generally just a little bit more, like, just a little bit better to use proxies like this. So this is, just write out the same thing to both BGO and proxy. Yeah, let's just have a look at a practical example on sort of how we want to set this up. So these are here being spawned with a pop network. We can also here have them spawn with a, just growing on a curve. So let's set this up ourselves. Let's draw a curve. Let's do curve, and let's start drawing this. Let me do BJ curve like this. Let's maybe change this up a little bit. Something like this looks pretty cool. Let's sweep it. Let's do a ribbon. Let's increase the width. We can do a little bit of an attribute noise, similar to what I did there. Attribute noise for the P scale. As you can see there, P scale. Oh, P scale floats, and then we can make it a little bit more interesting. Then on there we can scatter a couple of points. And what we also first need to do is, before we sweep, actually, we need to resample this curve so we get some points. And we want some attributes on this. So there's a thing called the curve view attribute. You're probably familiar with it if you watch any of my other videos. So we create an attribute from 0 to 1 across the curve. We can visualize this. Either with a visualize node or just a color node. Doesn't really matter. If we do curve view, you can see we get a black to white value sort of across this curve. So we can then, now we scatter, and you can see we sweep, attribute will still be on it, and now we probably need to change here the scale of this noise a little bit. Right, something like this. And we will still have this attribute on here. So again, we can have a look. Run from attribute curve view. And we can use this attribute in our initialize attributes to initialize from an attribute. Because if we don't do this, it will just start at one frame. We can try this if we want. So let's do tvh geosequence. And let me do sequence from disk plus. Let me point this to my growing flower. Right, there we go. We have a flower just growing exactly the same across this entire thing. And then we can of course do retime instances. We do make it a little bit more interesting. So we could like do a little bit of delay. So we get a little bit more randomness. But it's still sort of just happening all at once in this thing. And of course, like you can go in here, you can do like an override to like change the delay here. But probably what we're going to do is we're going to initialize attribute. We can do initialize from attribute. You can see it jumps to curve view. I'm not sure if I'm leaving this as curve view, or maybe I'll put it to age, which might also be something you probably want to do. So let me remove the delay for now. So now you can see they are sort of already growing here a little bit, and then not really that much over there. So you can see they're now using this curve view attribute. Well, we can then use a attribute remap, because now it is 0 to 1. So that kind of means that sort of if we have a look at this thing, if we have a look at our TVH age, at the beginning here, our age will now go from 0 to 1. So there will like 0 seconds, and then 1 second. So 24 frames will be over here, 0 frames will be over there. We probably want to increase that a little bit. We want to change that up. So we probably want to go in here. We can fit it. We can either do it over here or somewhere else. Let's grab the curve view. So we want to give it an input and output. So input min, 0, input max, like that. Let's do like 15. So we're going to remap the curve view from 0 to 15. And you can see in the beginning, now these are like these over here will already be grown because they will have an age of 15 at the start, right? Which you probably don't want in this case, but we can easily account for that. We could have the delay here, so we could either calculate we can calculate the delay, or like 15 seconds times 24, 360, right? So now, so we're at 24 FPS, so that's why I can calculate the thing, and now they will sort of start here at the beginning. If you don't want to do this, you could do 15 times, and you should get the same, as you can see. But yeah, now you can see we actually get some flowers. They're sort of growing across this curve. Now we want to sort of randomize this. So in this retime, we can randomize this growth pattern a little bit. So we get a little bit more interesting growth pattern here. We could do like an attribute noise. We could go up a float. We could do TVH. We could put it after this instead of do multiply. So you could let's do min mar. Oh no, we probably want to add it. So now we can do a little bit of with a little bit of a noise. We could sort of drive this even more. Or you could subtract it from it. Subtract to get something like this. So you can see you can just play around with these attributes to sort of create something that you like. I'm gonna remove that for now. And again, this is all just still procedural, so I can grab my curve, I can move it around. And if I go into my flower cam, so this is going to be our preview thing. Let's say we want to render this. So I'm gonna do another TVH sequence, or I can just link it into this one. So this is probably like kind of the same thing. I will need to override the delay here as well. But this one is going to a Redshift proxy, as you can see here, and this one is sort of, you don't even need to output instance geometry. You can just do output instance geo. So it will still have these attributes on here. Instance file, and on the sort of render node, so I'm loading this into a separate render node, and I'm saying here on the Redshift OBJ tab, process instance and instance file attributes inside back primitives. So it's going to process the attributes in there. And now if I have a look in my render view, yeah, we should see our growing flowers. So what I like to do, like I mentioned, is to have both a preview one and a and an actual render one. And of course, you could also like swap this out a little bit. Like if you want to, like I could make a reference copy. For example, what I could do is I could do a reference copy of all of the nodes that we have here, and then plug those into my actual Redshift instance. And then I could make a separate scatter. Let's do the curve view before this. Could do separate scatter. So we could have in our preview, for example, here, do like a couple of flowers just to sort of get a point across. And on for our Redshift one, could really crank it up. We don't see it in the viewport, and then but once we start rendering, like we really get a lot of flowers here, which yeah, we can sort of just change here, update. I think it should even, if I just drop like this, yeah, you can see. And again, you could make, you could have multiple flowers here. So yeah, very, very cool use case for growing plants and flowers. This is just like, if you need to do this, this is yeah, pretty much just the perfect way to do this. Or you can see my curve actually is not on the floor anymore. Let me just move it down a little bit, I guess. Let's do like this. But yeah, so pretty straightforward, but very cool. And you can imagine, like if you have if you have a big library of all kinds of growing flowers, you just throw them in here. You just you add multiple things here. You just configure it, and it all works. And it's super reliable. And this is extremely fast. I can you can really crank this up. Like I could make 100,000. Like make the sweep a little bit thicker. It is going to look a little bit weird in render because of the edges, but you can see it's pretty much like compute time is really fast. So like this is stuff I've done extensively already, like in production. And yeah, it's just a cool technique, and like this tool just makes it, yeah, just so much easier to do all of this stuff. And it's just a lot of fun, and you can combine it with other techniques. All right, let's have a look at another example. All right, let's have a look at the explosion example. So again, this is just a shelf tool explosion. You can do much better looking explosions. You don't have to just do a simple shelf tool explosion. You can do a proper high-res explosion. But again, just to put it in here, normally for explosions and stuff, I use Axiom. And like, I just wanted to put something in here, so you can, in the example files, you can try it out. So I just used a very basic shelf tool. Yeah, I mean, you can see it's an explosion. It's not the highest resolution explosion, but it's still, I mean, it's still like relatively reasonable sort of size. I do actually have an example file also with an Axiom explosion in it. I will open it. All right, so here's another file, slightly more interesting explosions. Still not the best ones ever, but like they're a little bit higher resolution, as you can see here. Slightly higher resolution. Yeah, I'm just here sort of just with a pop network, just spawning some particles. You get an entire field here of explosions. Then here, so like what I'm doing is I have proxies that I make. I'll go through back to the other file to show how the proxies were made. Here I'm actually instancing the actual explosions. We can have a look here at the viewport. It is going to be a lot slower because this will need to instance the actual explosions. Which will probably be faster if we cache them as VDBs, but then we don't have the preview thing in there and the stuff like that. So That's why I have them as BGOs. All right, so you can see here, 44 explosions, pretty reasonable. We can go into lob network to have a look at what that looks like. Again, this is going to take a little bit of time. We can do Karma XPU, and we can have a look at it. And it will just take some time for it to cook, but eventually it'll work, and it's pretty fast. It keeps all the FD instancing, as you can see here. All right, here we go. I had to restart Houdini for it to actually work. Yeah, you can see slightly more interesting explosions, and I can sort of maneuver through it. Pretty cool, and I can go to a different frame, and again, it's going to think for a little bit, but it's you can see it's pretty fast. Rendering with XPU. So yeah, if you want to do a ton of explosions, no problem with PathSequencer. Right, let's go back to my demo scene. Oh, by the way, this was set up in Solaris, you can also just set stuff as a proxy. So you can see here I'm loading this in as a thing. So just loading this in, this is display. This doesn't have anything set up, and this is set up as render. So this will just show up, and then I should actually this should set to proxy like this. Yeah, actually should be like that. And then, yeah, so now this will, like, this points will render as a proxy. The other will render as an actual piece of render geometry. All right, back to the regular. All right, so we're back in the sort of shelf to explosion thing. Yeah, so just simulated two versions of yeah, shelf to explosion. You can see they're slightly different. Then what I did for the proxy issue, effectively you just delete everything non-selected, just keep density. Do like point separate, like put a points from volume, so you like get some points in there. Then you do attribute from volume to grab the temperature. You put a visualization on there to get the color from it. So you get this way you can get a yeah, you can do a sort of a preview thing. So this is a nice way to visualize this. Right from the other stuff, I just have a very similar thing, a line. Sweeping it again, I can make this longer. Attribute remap, initialize attributes from curve view, retime. There's some retime instances stuff going on, and the should be 240. You can see you get a bunch of explosions going on. And then similar thing here. So you just load the proxies here. You load the actual render geometry in there. Then you have a lob network. You can just load your render geo in there, or you can set it up like I did before with the proxy geometry. I can do that. Maybe to just demonstrate. So let me grab the preview points. Let's do sub import. Let me load the points here. Here we get the we'll get the points. Let me put some visualization. Does this have? Yeah, for the preview, yeah, should be unpacked. There we go. For some reason, color is not showing true here. But it's fine. Not sure why it's not picking up on it. It should have display color. Oh wait, it's because we're doing visualization instead of color. Yeah, you'd want to do color instead of the visualization. I'm not going to cache that out because this visualization is not going to work in Solaris. So if you put color on there, it will sort of it will work. Yeah, you can do this. Then you can say, I think it's called render settings. No, I always forget what it's called. Oh, no, I think it's configure primitive. Configure primitive. And we can say, all right, what purpose should be proxy. So then if it's set to proxy, effectively it will just not render. And then the other thing we can put it to put it in here, and you can set it to render. We should be able to merge this together. Now we should, if we do Karma XPU, as you can see, so apparently explosion here starts at frame 1. So you probably want to offset the start frame of the explosion. So we'd want to probably, okay, so they seem to, over here, I guess maybe that might be a bug actually, because it's not happening here. All right, I'm gonna check what's going on there, but so I'm gonna fix that. I guess I keep running into small issues again. You might run into small issues. They're easily fixable, but so if at tvh does not equal 0.0, then we're gonna remove point. Right, here we go. It should actually be if it's below the threshold. But yeah, if it's below the threshold, and yeah, I forgot to hit record last time, so that's why I'm already have Karma here fired up. But you can see I can just script through it, and pretty fast. So yeah, if you have a whole bunch of explosions to place, PathSequencer is the way to do it. Pretty cool. All right, let's have a look at another example. Let's have a look at this sort of MoGraphy example. Again, this is very simple example. I didn't know what to make for the, like I wanted one more example, and I just put this together in a couple of minutes. But again, this gets the point across as to sort of what you can do with it, for example. All right, so here I have a couple of very simple with your body simulations. So just some cubes exploding outwards. Here the same thing happening with the sphere. The scale is just animating down. Same with this torus. So it's being cast out as alembics. So I can sort of also control the, like I can do slow motion and stuff like that. Then I have a sphere here, and I'm just setting velocity to the normal. And then I'm just emitting out some particles here. For some reason, I think Karma is still rendering in the background. Let me turn off Karma here. All right, there we go. So some points, a lot faster now. So yeah, it's just setting up a random orientation on these things, initializing attributes from H, orienting them, retiming them with some delay, and then just setting up geosequence to sort of emit these things. And I'm unpacking them so they look a little bit more normal. Else you see these hard edges. So effectively, what I'm doing here is these things are so set to hold first frame. So they will hold the first frame before this thing starts animating. And of course, in the first frame, these things will just look like this, right? So then later, and I like they're packed now, I could also have unpack them before I instance them like that. But so they will sort of effectively hold this position, so they will be delayed like this. And then once they hit their sort of trigger point, they will sort of animate outwards. And you get a cool MoGraphy type of effect. So it's very simple. And again, because these are alembics, we can really we can make this really, we can really make them super slow motion. Okay, now they're even slow motion to the point where they are not even playing because the live on these things is too short. Let's see if we can get that to, okay, I guess we need to make them a little bit faster. Okay, let me change the, right, there we go. You see now they're gonna really slowly sort of break apart. You can see we can get slow motion, or you can do some really fast. Some slow motion, some really fast. Do whatever your heart desires. I'm gonna undo this to get back to something that actually looks nice. But yeah, pretty cool, pretty simple example. Yeah, just play around with it, make some cool effects. But yeah, it's just simple example of how this could be useful in a motion designy world where you're just triggering animations based on your particles. Yeah, so that was the practical example video. We have one more video left. This is going to be talking about these texture mappings. So that's more for creating sort of more 2D effects for like mapping sprites and like textures like from folders on your on particles or geometry. So see you in the next video.